me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am just elated to have my next guest. We have met on Clubhouse and we are on stage after stage after stage together in a lot of instances. But I am so excited to have Dr. Rowe here with me today. And before we get into all these juicy questions and everything, I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your show, first of all. Wonderful. So I have spent my career pretty much in business, and I started out as an accountant for 17 years doing taxes, and people that know me say, that is so not your personality. They're right. I started in that arena because my dad said that was the best way to make money. I'm glad he told me that because it gets your mojo going with numbers, but I was able to take that skill set and expound and get a higher education so that I could teach business. So finance, marketing, and management is pretty much what I taught for 13 years in a collegiate setting. And I love my students. I miss them so much. I will always be a professor at heart. It's just something that is always there. I was born to teach, write, speak. So sometimes that's not in the classroom, it's other places. Trigger warning to your viewers. My 18-year-old son passed away 19 months ago. So that put me on a pause where my career questions about what God wanted me to do was in my head. Like, am I meant to teach? What do I need to do? So God kind of shifted my thought process. For a number of years, I've always consulted on the side with like companies, typically nonprofits. But what God has pivoted me to do with what happened to my son is actually consult with churches. So there are a lot of African-American children who have risen to the top in statistics of leaving this earth by their own hands, the way my Giovanni did. And it is my mission to make sure that I stop that and let them know that Jesus is first and foremost. And that's for, people that are Christians that believe the same way I do. I don't want them to ever do that. So in sorts, in a gist, who I am is a writer, speaker, teacher. And that's what I pivoted to now, to kind of be an advocate. And I have to do that because it's the most traumatic thing that any mom, any person can go through.
And I really appreciate you sharing that with the audience. And I want to say, that is the way that we got connected. We were on a stage together and you shared part of your story. And, that there's something about this clubhouse community culture that allows you to talk about the hard things, in a way that you're in a room full of strangers, but I don't know, it's some kind of energy. So kind of explain to everybody how you were able to share your story in such, I don't remember how many people were in the room, but I'm sure you've shared it in numbers of rooms. We've been on several stages and it's kind of like follows you because it was so moving. A lot of people were so moved by it that type of story kind of precedes you on different stages. You get on a stage and it's like, oh, we remember you shared or whatever. So talk to us about how that happened.
So basically, I was not intending to come in Clubhouse and speak or do anything. I didn't know what a Clubhouse was. I downloaded it back in January. I went inside and I heard a bunch of people talking. And honestly, it was annoying because I didn't know what it was. I was like, why are these people talking in here? This is crazy. So I just shut the app down. And then literally 5.5 weeks ago, I was in my closet and I was in tears, just asking God, what is it that you're trying to teach me out of what's happening? And I think I came to that point because Mother's Day was coming up. I'm sad. I miss my son, and the shock kind of has wear down, and it's like I miss him. He was the baby. He's 18. He was a senior in high school. So I'm sitting in the closet and I was just bawling. And I had a notification for whatever reason, it popped up, and I was like, okay. So I pushed the button and I ended up going in this room on, it was the Breakfast with Champions room, for millionaires inside of the app. And I didn't know what it was, but I heard like a lot of motivational thing. And I was like, this is cool. So I sat and listened to it like a podcast, not understanding, like push the button to raise your hand and all the other things. So I noticed that everybody was going over to another group that is associated with that one, and it's the social media room. And I thought, okay, how do I do that? So I went over, I'm in the audience, just minding my own business. And one of the moderators who I know now well, Alexander Gonzalez, saw me in the audience. And for whatever reason, he read my profile, pulled me up to the stage, and he's like, he was just amplifying me in every way, didn't know me from Jack Adam. And the question of the day was something like, what advice would I give someone in order to, get through the week or get through life, something like that. And I first just simply said, life is short. I know that for a fact. And then I went into the story about what happened to my son, hearing his last 3 breaths, just everything that has happened. And I just encourage all of them in that room to make sure that they count every single moment with their family, because it's not promised. And I know that for a fact. It's not a cliche. It touched Alexander to the point where he was actually in tears. And he said, oh my goodness, you're a gem. So from that day, that social media family took me under their wings, including the Breakfast with Champions group. And it was like, come, so most of the time I'm on the stage. Sometimes I moderate, sometimes I don't. And I find the moments where it's best not to trauma dump, because a lot of people have issues going on. So it's easy to go right into the story. And I've learned to do it in an eloquent way where I'm still saying what happened, but letting other people know, I see you, I understand.
Right.
Here, let me help you with your pain by referring you to a resource. I am not a psychologist, I'm a PhD in business, that kind of field of international finance and public policy and administration soon here. So it makes you feel like, what does God want me to do with my voice in Clubhouse? Mm-hmm. If it's going to be an app that's for the future, let me use it, right? For God's glory.
I love that. And, so talk to somebody who is watching about how they can navigate through kind of like the journey. We talk about social media and it's like, oh, well, you may not have arrived, but you're going through the journey, because when you're finding your voice or your message, when it comes to sharing and this new area that God is giving you to speak on, how do you navigate through that? Because some people feel like, well, I need to be completely healed before I start talking to other people. Other people are like, well, I just want to cover it. So explain that us, where you're at and how are you going through that process?
Sure. Well, at first, I think every person is different. In the past, before this happened, I'd go to a mom or a dad when they lost someone and just say, I'm praying for you. And I meant it from the heart, but right. It's just different now. Moms or dads, and I'm speaking from a mother's perspective, if you know anybody who has lost a child, they need more than just, I'm praying for you, let me send you a card. Right. It's there's a hole that will never, ever, ever be sealed. However, you learn how to navigate around that. What I did right away, my husband and I went to a program called Grief Share, and it's a biblical, kind of biblically based grieving program that's around the country. And it costs $15 or it's free sometimes for the book. And you go and it's like 13 weeks of all of the processes that someone goes through with grief. So it may not just be what my son did, but any kind of grief that deals with death. So you're in a room and you watch a video, and then when the video's over, they split you up in groups where you're able to air out whatever it is you want to talk about with grief. And they have qualified people in there, just kind of, when I say qualified, they've been trained with that program to ask you questions, talk. They're not really therapists. Sometimes they might just happen to be, but it's just talking about it. We did that right away, like literally 2 weeks after my son passed away. I sat in that room, didn't say a word because I was just in shock. And I felt like nobody in here understands, the trigger word suicide, but it did help. I just had to be quiet most of the time, listen more than I speak. So I went to that. Then I got into trauma therapy. That by far was hands down the best thing I've ever done. I didn't realize I had PTSD already from the things, but to hear your child, the last breath. So when the police knocked on my door and we're hearing the sound the way we did, it's just something you'll never forget. And I can talk about it to you without tears at times because of trauma therapy. So a qualified therapist walked through that. And currently I'm getting ready to start the EMDR process where I can still like see what happened, hear helicopters without stressing myself, that kind of thing. So it's a forever process. No matter how much education you have, who you are, therapy is a must, in my opinion.
I totally agree.
Yes. So where I'm at right now, it's been 19 months. There are days that I look out the window and I'm bawling. I'll see something like a blue bird. My son's favorite color is blue. I wear blue for his favorite color to honor the high functioning autism he had and advocate for it, and for suicide prevention. So it's all about the same thing. So I'll look outside, and when he first passed away, the neighbor called me next door and she goes, "Look out of the window." So I'm looking, and there was a bird, actually 2 of them, trying to get in the window. And I was like, "Why are these birds getting in the window?" She goes, "Look closely." They were 2 blue birds. I can't make it up. So I'm not saying that it was my son, but it was just like a sign to me that, wow, he's there. Other times, I grew up in a cultish kind of religion, so they don't believe in going to heaven. And sometimes that'll creep up. I know that my son's in heaven, but I went outside and I said, "Lord, show me where my son is." And literally the sky opened like right in front of me. And it was like a hue of blue and brown. And so to have those things happen while you're grieving, it's a process. It's like, I don't think that'll ever repeat itself, but there's days like that. And then there's other days that just writing or talking or helping helps me to calm down. Then there's other days I don't want to get out of the bed. I will go and take a bath with like lavender, or just smell the flowers, smell the grass outside, do paintings, like paint by number little paintings, or eat my favorite food or something like that, to just get my mind away from those last moments, that kind of thing. So I would say on a scale from 1 to 10, like today, I'm probably at a 7. Another day I might be at a 5. And I don't know any mom. I mean, I've talked to lots of moms who are far beyond this, and they're still crying 13 years later, 30 years later. So it's a whole.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. And, the thing about it that really, it's just so courageous of you to be able to share that journey. Because, there's this thing, and even being a Christian, I don't know if it has that to do with it, but, it's a feeling that you have to look put together. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't break down. I serve a good God. I mean, what do I look like breaking down or having this moment? And to be able to be vulnerable, it is so powerful and inspirational for other people. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. For somebody who, we're in a time where people's mental state is not the best because of, maybe it's income issues or relationships and things like that. What are some of the signs or something that people should be looking for when it comes to seeing people in that dark space or something? Was there any kind of, what would you say to that?
So I'm only speaking from watching my son as a teenager, and I know that every person is different. I've heard people say, there's a cliche about here's the signs. Sometimes a person may never know, but for Giovanni, if I'm thinking back, like leading up to the week that he passed away, I look back now and I'm thinking, man, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Sometimes he was depressed. He really was. He had gone through a relationship breakup. So the first thing I would say to parents and people is to be mindful of what your kids are doing, teenagers or not, if they're in a relationship and what is happening in that relationship. Somebody might say, well, you shouldn't be nosy. Yeah, be nosy, see what's happening. You may not can't stop everything, but they need to know that you care enough about their relationship to sometimes intervene. I am not putting all of this on the young lady that was involved with him, but there was a big integral part of that situation. So it's a sign. Like if something is toxic, I don't care how old you are, get out of it. If you're not married to that person, get out of it. If you are married to them, get counseling, get help. That week he had volunteered at a local place that helps young people in like Haiti and other places that don't have food. And he was putting together these meals with 3 of his male friends. And my understanding is they went on like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday together. Well, on Tuesday, the girlfriend was aware that he was there with these men, the 3 boys that he goes to school with. And she didn't like that and I'm projecting this, my understanding is that she did not like that he was with them. So there was a conversation between the 2 of them that the friends heard, and they were both saying not so nice things to each other. She broke up with my son and told him, my father will disown me if I date you. To my son, who suffered with high functioning autism, the mental capacity of your brain doesn't necessarily process everything the same way, especially emotionally. So fast forward that day, that evening when he came home, he was drenched in like wet water in his face. And I'm like, what is going on? And he said, the young lady broke up with him. Internally, I was like, yes, as a mom. But he went downstairs. And he was down there for a bit and he came back up and he says, Mom, can I go for a walk? And I said, boy, like any Black mom would in a neighborhood that there's not a lot of diversity. I said, you are not going outside in a hoodie at this time of night and you're 6 feet tall, and you're Black. And he goes, it's okay, Mom. I'm just going outside for a walk. So my husband said, just let him, go to the end of the street and cool off. Well, he was gone for like 20 minutes. So I was worried. We actually called the police. The police came and they did find him and they were able to talk. And I remember the police officer giving me a card and he said, it's that first breakup thing. He's just sad. Here's my card. Call me if there's any other issues. That was Tuesday. Fast forward on the Friday that he died. I had no idea the interchanging that these 2 had until long after he had passed away. There were texts and letters and just some very toxic conversations going, like almost punishing my child for doing whatever. And he couldn't take it. And I'm projecting on what I read. Mm-hmm. I also found several letters where they were handwritten almost so that I didn't check his phone, because I would check his phone and sometimes text her. But the handwritten letter said, I know your mom cares nothing about you. I know your mom does not love you. I'm the only one that loves you. So to read that after he was gone, I just, I can't even tell you right now how upset that, it made me. But on the day he passed, he had went to school early in the morning and he was in a program where you leave and you go to work. And so he went to school for about an hour and had came home early. And I said, why are you here? And he said, I'm never going back to that school, Mom. And I don't know what happened, but he goes, I'll finish school. I'm just not going there. And he goes, and yes, I'm going to go to therapy. So the plan was for me to go to his school, pick him up so he didn't have to drive to the appointment and leave his car at school, but he came home. So I said, okay, I'll drive you to therapy. Well, today, looking back, I believe God let me see exactly what was happening in that situation. So I sat in therapy with him. I listened to everything I just told you from before about the toxicity in this relationship, toxicity, I should say, in this relationship. And my husband was listening on audio, and we just were floored. And I remember the therapist saying, Giovanni, why do you want to be with someone like that, with what you're describing? And he said, because I love her. Those were his last words in therapy. We got in the car, went to Popeye's Chicken. He loves the macaroni from there and from the other place. I know you know what it is. I can't think of it right now. It's a very popular one. And I'm saying this because I remember the memories about him. Oh my gosh, they're closed on Sundays. What are they called?
Chick-fil-A.
Yes, Chick-fil-A. He loves
Yeah.
both, but we went to the other, and he says, Mom, can I get a large one? And I said, Gino, let me just give you a small one. It's okay. And I'm thinking back, because I play it. Well, we stopped at a friend's, got some donations for the Bahamas because they were in tragedy back then with that hurricane. And we get home, and I mean, he seemed normal. He ate, he went downstairs, he got the dog, and then I heard the door shut a couple of hours later. So I thought, oh, he's gone to feed my starving children. Normally he will say hi, bye. What he had done was went outside with the dog really quick. He did shut the door, but he came back through another way, went downstairs, and I did not know this. So the school calls me at 1:30. And the school says, around that time, Ro, is Giovanni home? And I said, no, he's not. And she says, no, I think you better look. So I go looking for him. Didn't see him. I didn't see the dog. The lights were all off. I go to the garage and I see his car. And I thought, what is going on? So I went back down there, and he was hiding behind a door. And he was like curled up like this. And I mean, I've never seen any of my kids cry the way I saw Gino crying. And I rubbed his back and I said, Gino, I love you. What is going on? What's the matter? And he said, who's on the phone? Because I had the school on the phone like this. So I said, let me get her off the phone. I'll come right back. And those were the last words that Giovanni said to me, which I didn't know at that time. So I was coming up the stairs to finish that conversation where he didn't hear what she was saying. And as I'm coming up, she said, well, the police are on the way to your house. She didn't say why, but as she's saying that, they're banging at the door. So I'm just like, let me let you go. I opened the door, and the police officer was like, hi, ma'am. He steps in, and we both hear the loudest bang I've ever heard in my life. And I sat, on the bench that when you walk in my home, and it's just something that I can't even explain it to you. Like if I hear the sound of any gun or something like that, and I'm not knocking anybody with a gun because I'm registered to carry it. It's just something you never want to experience. So I say all of that just to say the sign is, some of the signs that I'm only speaking of is depression. Like, take that seriously. Young people going through relationships, dig in it. I mean, I hacked my son's email and saw 3,700 photos that were sent to him over a 9-month period of this relationship. Somebody else might say, oh, they're kids. To me, that's sick. I'm sorry. So I pray for that young lady, and I did pray with her family, but that's a warning sign, that in itself. That the other thing is just isolation. When somebody is trying to isolate you from your family and they're telling you things that may or may not be true, but it's like, I'm the only one, it's like, what? Like, you can have as many friends as you want. Why are you saying this? So that's to me a red flag. Gino was not perfect in any way, nor any of us are. I'm sure he had his issues, but for him to feel like it's okay to take my life, it just, as a parent, you think to yourself, man, did he not believe that that I loved him, that his siblings loved him, that his bonus dad, his bonus siblings, did he not realize we loved him? Obviously not. So those are signs. Like, what is this child feeling? What is the person feeling? How do they look today? Are they off a little bit? When they tell you, I'm going to kill myself, or somebody says this, say something. Giovanni had actually texted this young lady, and I didn't find this out till later in the morning. And he said, the text read, I'm going to kill myself at this time. And if you tell anybody, I will do it sooner. On the reply, there was no reply from her, but she did do other conversations, but hadn't replied to that. So I don't know the story. I just know that from what I read, it looks like she didn't say a word. What he did do also was text a bullet with his hand, and the bullet was in his hand, to 3 of those friends that were with him earlier in the week. They are the ones that told. Thank you, Lord. Because had they not said something, just imagine if I was in this house and that happened and I went down there and saw him, because the police didn't let me see him. I just heard him because I was up above on the top floor of our home. But am I angry? I would just say I'm hurt to no end that I didn't know. I wish I had known, and maybe I could have stopped, what happened, but just to know that he was that in pain that there's nothing I can do. So again, to your point of what you asked, take seriously the pain of other people. If it's you internally feeling not okay, say something, not just to, to a friend that you think is listening, like to a professional, a qualified person. If you are not sure, pick up the phone, 1-800-273-TALK. And it's 8255 is the number for that. But 1-800-273-TALK is a number that you can call anonymously and speak to somebody and say, look, I'm not feeling okay. I have a headache, or I'm stressed, or I'm angry, or I feel like I'm going to kill myself. Tell them so that they can help. There's a lot. And then also, if you notice, let's just say my personality is I'm an outgoing person. If I'm quiet, overly quiet, pay attention to that, keep asking, even if it sounds annoying, is everything okay? And stop to listen. Those are some of the small things that I can think of. I think everybody's situation is different. And when a person takes their life, you almost live the rest of your life if you allow it to think shoulda, woulda, coulda. I'm pained because I am licensed to carry. I had never been like that before, but I was in an abusive relationship much before my husband now. And I got licensed so that I could protect myself in case something happened. And it's not something people would know. But what has choked me internally is knowing that later, after Gino passed, he had a PS4 box in his room, and it was just folded up. And when we went to put it down, or it was sitting up when we went to put it down, because he was very organized with everything he did, it had a gun case in it, and that gun was in there. And so to think to yourself, our family gun, whether it's my husband or mine, that he used that, it's like something that haunts you. Like, okay, so it could have been anything else he used. And I don't, like I said, people, there's protection for every single person, but it's when you're using like a weapon to do something like hurt people or kill yourself, then I don't advocate for that. But I do advocate for protection if somebody's going to do that to me. But it's something that is conflicting me right now, knowing what happened.
Yeah.
I just still can't believe it, some days. So therapy has been a lifesaver to talk straight about this. And then some days I just relentlessly cry. So I would also say to other people, if you know you're having issues or somebody is, get them in therapy. I mean, find a way. Electronically, there's teletherapy, whatever needs to be done, get that out, because that burning sensation inside is going to turn into anger. It could be death, anything. So.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing. And I think, the next question, and this will be the last one, because you definitely have given us a lot to think about, is, the active listening. Because, as a parent, your kids tell you stuff, and it's like, what do we do that shows that we're actively listening? Because that's my thing. So often it's like, your kid comes to you hurt, and it's like, okay, I don't see you bleeding. Nothing's going on. You look like you're fine. Go into your room or something. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
how do we make sure that we're actively listening? And are there different questions we need to be asking?
Sure. And I'm only speaking as a mom, not a scholar. I would say eye contact with that person, just like you and I are talking right now. And it's that undivided attention. If my son or my daughter is talking to me and I have my phone up like this, they're clearly feeling, whether you're listening or not, that you're not listening. So active listening, like, and also saying, so what I heard you say is, and repeating that back so that they know, oh, you're actually are listening to me. Clarifying things that you don't understand. And sometimes it even helps. Some kids are, you learn as teens, they don't want to be touched. My son was high functioning autistic, or had high functioning autism. So he had sensory things, but sometimes I touch him anyway. But sometimes just holding the person's hand while you're talking to them, looking at them, you feel that connection. And it's like, tell me, what's wrong? Is everything okay? I'm not going to get mad about what you say. And I find, as a parent, if you tell someone ahead of time, like, I know you, or I assume that you might be feeling this, but I want you to know I might be upset, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. You can tell me anything, and make them feel comfortable to tell you what's going on, because I'm learning now Gino was internalizing all the things he was going through, because he probably thought I would go off. He also knew I didn't like the behavior. So if I could do anything different, it would be to really listen to him, even if I didn't like it, not react. Listen to understand, not listen to react. Because he would feed off of how I felt. Like, I know my mom's going to feel this way, so I'm not going to do this. And then he's internalizing this and battling high functioning autism. It was too much. It was too much. I think he felt, I need to be free from all of this, at least at that moment. And other things were going on too. So active listening is just how we're doing right now. And what I don't understand while he's talking, write it down so I can go back and say, now, what you said was this, that kind of thing. It's just clarification. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are some great, great tips. And I just really appreciate your transparency. And I know for somebody watching, this really has been a major, major blessing for them, for you to be able to be open and honest. And I also want to just help people understand that there is hope, and things will get better, not in a sense of, minimizing a life, but understanding that, God uses all of our situations for his glory, whether we understand it or not. And
Amen.
if we're here, there's still work for us to do. So whatever that is, you know what I mean?
Well, I can tell you this, if you have a moment. I know for a fact that God knew that Giovanni was only going to have 18 years on this earth. And the only reason I know that, and the mission he wants me to endure or go through right now and journey, is because when we got to the hospital, and I mean, we're in a very traumatic situation here. My friend stayed at my home while they were, all over the house. And we got to the hospital, and I looked in the back of the window. And before that, I said, why is the chaplain following us? Because I, never went through this. My husband said, well, I don't know. So we get there, the chaplain comes in, the doctor immediately with the nurse, and they were like, Giovanni's not going to make it. I did hear his 3 breaths, but they put him on a ventilator to keep him, alive or whatever. But she said, he's not going to make it. I said, can I see him? So I held his hand initially. He was cold as ice, but then like 5 minutes later, he was warm from the ventilator. And, my husband, the lady came and said, here is a list. These are the people that are going to get your son's organs. And it was like a paper with like the ages and the state that they're going to be in. And at that moment, my husband said, doesn't our attorney need a kidney? And I said, you can't pick, the person it goes to. And the nurse said, well, actually you can if they're on the list. So she's like, let me see what I can do. So long story short, 20 minutes later, my attorney's calling me crying. I'm so sorry for what you are going through, but your son's a match. Your son is a match. And so today, my son is helping someone who is African American. And I only bring that up because the minimal people, the amount of ratio of people who are minorities don't have that opportunity. You don't have to be a certain race to get an organ. However, if you are of the same race, it's a better chance that it's going to take and be there and stay there. So it was a match and he's living. It's like, what kind of miracle is that? So from that, I left the hospital, which leads me to how we opened up this about being in the closet later. God showed me clearly what he wants me to do. I don't care how much education I have. He's like, look, you are going to ministry because I've been telling you this for years and you're not doing it. So my mission moving forward, and especially since I live in the Twin Cities where there's been a lot of civil unrest, there's been a 6-year-old who committed suicide, a 6-year-old, and they say it now, completed suicide, but a 6-year-old, what? Like, how does that happen here? So my mission is to work with the churches, like I said before, and help these young people understand that Jesus loves them. You don't have to take your life, and help the parents understand the things I saw. So if there's anything I can do by changing one life, that it changes it. So that's my mission at this point, to use it, not going in saying, hey, I have more education or I know the Bible. This is as a mom who is hurting behind the whole steps of what my son went through, and I want to make a difference.
I really, really resonate with that. That's kind of how I am when it comes to depression. It's like, I can't get those 13 years back, those 3 hospitalizations, but I can help somebody else. And I was on Clubhouse. It was a 19-year-old who shared how the rock bottom moments allow you to see people that you normally wouldn't see because of your education, because of your family environment, the way that you might have been privileged and other people are not. And when you hit rock bottom, you see all the people and advocate for them that you never would have had a voice for because you wouldn't have even seen them. You wouldn't even cross paths. So I think that is just amazing what you're doing. And it's just important for people to realize that. Talk to someone about how maybe this happened with their child, how it is empowering you, how much strength and healing it is for you to be able to do this.
There's days that if I didn't have this mission, I would probably be in a different space in my head. But whenever I hear, even on Clubhouse or anywhere else, God places me seemingly in the same room with somebody who is dealing with exactly what I'm dealing with. And it may not even be suicide. It's just losing their child. It's like, what, how do I end up being here? So I've connected with a lot of people, and I am not a therapist, but I am able to give them resources like I had and just be there sometimes. A lot of, sometimes you can pile on too much. So I know the limitations, but I can just see a ministry growing bigger, to have even more qualified people merge with what I'm trying to do, where I make a difference in the Twin Cities and beyond. And on Clubhouse, you can be talking to somebody in Canada and Africa, they're all over the place. It's crazy what that app has done. And I do believe, whether the founders are Christians or not, that God has some divine people moving through Clubhouse, because you and I would not be talking now without it.
Amen. I totally agree with that. Well, I just really thank you so much for sharing your story. Like I said, this has been a blessing to me, and I'm sure to all the viewers who are watching. And what is the best way for people to reach out to support you and what it is that you're doing?
Sure. They can go to drrolanda.com, and that's drrolanda.com. That is my professional website that talks about who I am, a little bit more about me and what I do, my books and those kinds of things. I also have a nonprofit, and it's so funny, and I'll tell you this quickly. Many years ago, for me, and we'll do this on another podcast, I was kidnapped at 12 and I was rescued. And I got back home with my father, and I have always advocated for kidnapping and, prevention of kidnapping and abuse of children. So that's just what I've done. So because of my busy schedule, I've only done one event a year since 2006. And that is on my birthday, I collect journals to give to children, because when I was in that space of 3 years, I was was in foster care, when they were trying to get me back home and I was abused. So I would write and scribble and do whatever. So I don't care what age a child is, I want them to have that creative side. So I would do that. And then I have a bear, and I'll pull it up in a minute so you can see it. But I have this bear, and it's called Courage the Comfort Bear. And the bear has a cape, like it's a hero. So years ago, I started that not as a nonprofit. I would just do it on my birthday, and I'd call the police departments and say, hey, can you help me find this parent that went through this, or here's something I saw in the media. Can you get this to them? And they would help me do that. So it's really ironic. And I call this divine. The bear, and I'll show it to you, is blue, like the blue in my hair, the cape. Now, this is years ago. It's the same blue as my nails. So the cape is blue and it's on there. And so one day, just aha moment hit me. I said, wait a minute. So my organization is called No More Crap. It's an acronym. No more children ripped apart from parents, right? So I said, wait a minute. Giovanni was ripped from me, whether it's suicide or not. So I decided at that moment to actually reach out and do the necessary paperwork to make it an official nonprofit. And the paperwork came back in January. They backdated it, and it actually came a year to the day of the anniversary of his death. So I now have an official 501c3, and it's called No More Crap. But the website, if anybody wants to see that, is No More Crap America, because someone took my No More Crap name. So nomorecrapamerica.org. And yes, the mission is specifically to help prevent child abuse, kidnapping, and suicide in minority households. And it doesn't mean I will not help any other household. I am going by experience of what I dealt with. And here in Minnesota with the civil unrest, there's so much, not just injustices, but sick things going inside of families. So I want to make it healthy for them. And the way I can do that with my schedule is still doing one event a year, but I do it on Gino's birthday now in September. So they can go to the website. You can look at it, nomorecrapamerica.org, and you'll see that. So that's what I do, and how someone can support me is praying for our family, please, because there's days that it's hard. It's not just me suffering. I have other children. I have 3 other biological children, 31, 27, 22. And then I have 3 biological children who are 31, 23, and 25. So they are all in different states. And I know that this hurts them. So my prayer request of your viewers would be to pray for our family to just heal in our own ways and for God to protect us. And the other ways, in as far as my business goes, is buy my books. I have one that I published in 2011, but there's others coming out, and I've asked God, when do you want me to do this and how? And I think he allowed me to go through these things so I could alter some things and release them with truth and grace. And so I'm at that point now in my life, and I appreciate any support that anyone would have for God's glory. So with that, I thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And thank you so much for sharing. And for those of you that are watching, if this resonates with you, reach out to Dr. Rowe. Having these conversations can really change your whole mindset and how things work out for you. If you have any questions, you feel uncomfortable, feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll be sure to make sure that she gets those. And again, I just want to thank you enough. I wish I could be there to give you a real hug, but this is a virtual hug for everything that you are. God is good. Just the anointing that's on you and everything that he has in store for you. I just pray for abundance of blessings, and anything that I can do to support you, please let me know.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be on your show. It's nice to see you face to face, because we hear each other's voices. So now I know, okay, I can put a face with the voice, and I appreciate you and will support you in any way I can as well.
Awesome. Well, we just thank you guys so much for watching us today. Feel free to share this message. This is one that needs sharing. So many people are hurting. So many people can get so much wisdom and insight from this episode. So please share it. And again, if you have any questions, reach out and let us know. And we want to thank you all for joining us today. And we will see you all on the next episode. Bye for now.